Rusame reader, Kurosong! And today I will be reading to you from Stars and Moonflowers in Our Garden by Rainbow Star _772. That's me! Now, on to chapter 36. Staying and Grumpy Mornings. America smiled gently at Russia, who had still yet to answer the question. Could I stay with you? Russia asked in a whisper, as if speaking any louder would put them both in danger. Of course, I wouldn't have offered otherwise, America assured him with a gentle smile. He then turned himself to the door, gently opening it. He realized where the other's arms were, and it was admittedly a little flustering. They were wrapped around his waist at this point, though he was fairly certain they'd started around his upper chest. He walked in, making sure that Russia got in as well. Once they were both in, he closed the door quietly as to not wake anyone else up. He smiled softly at Russia and gently led him over to the bed, having to gently coax Russia into it. Once Russia was in the bed, America got his inkwell and quill from his desk, then searched around for something he could bear down on. He then headed back to the bed and got in next to Russia, who seemed to relax upon his return. I'm still here, Russ. Do you want to pulse check me or something? Can hold? The other mumbled, opening one eye to look up at him. Sure, if it'll make you feel better. After he said that, Russia shifted and grabbed onto him, snuggling up to him a bit. He felt Russia nuzzle his head into his side, which was quite flustering, but it seemed to be relaxing Russia, so he pushed down how flustering it was, dismissing his own thoughts. He grabbed a pillow from behind himself and placed it on his lap. Once it was there, he put the board he'd grabbed on top of the pillow, and he put his writing utensil and inkwell on the board. He then reached into his bag and pulled out the letter from Neeks, an envelope, and a few sheets of paper. Then he started to write his response, while rereading the previous letter to make sure he got everything. Once he was done writing, he readied the envelope and waited for the ink to dry. Once the ink was dry on the envelope and the letter, he folded the letter and slid it into the envelope. He put his closed inkwell and quill on his bedside table, slid the board in between the bed and bedside table, and put the pillow back behind himself. He looked over and saw that Russia was comfortably asleep. He wasn't sure how much of a heavy sleeper his friend and crush was, but he hoped that it was enough that he could move and make himself a bit more comfortable, though he was careful as he slowly shifted himself down so that he was laying down. Russia stirred a little and opened one of his eyes, looking over him. Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere, America gently reassured, smiling at Russia. I was just getting myself a bit more comfortable. Russia made an incomprehensible noise and moved closer to him. He then moved one hand up to check America's pulse again. See, I still have a pulse, America affirmed, moving to lightly hug Russia. You can go back to resting. I'll be here when you wake up. Russia let out an affirmative noise, then got closer to America, burying his face in America's chest. He pulled America even closer, cuddling up to him. While Russia cuddled him, he also moved his hands the same way he had earlier, confirming to himself that America was still there and alive. America smiled softly and hummed a little, hoping it'd relax Russia and let him know that he was still there and breathing. Soon, he noticed Russia starting to relax, likely falling asleep again. But he kept humming, closing his eyes so that he might also get to enjoy some sleep. He opened his eyes and looked around, finding Russia, who was still asleep. He looked at the clock on his wall and found it was now 6:46. He normally liked to be up and out of bed by now, but he could stay a little while longer, if only so that Russia got enough rest. He hadn't noticed when he'd woken up, but now that he was more awake, he noticed where his own arms were, as well as where Russia's were. His were around the taller man's shoulders, and Russia's were around his waist. Though that wasn't all. Russia had managed to get his shirt moved up, and his hands were now on his bare skin. He could feel Russia's hands moving, tracing his sides. Russia also had his face buried in his neck. His breathing was calm and slow. The other was in a comfortable state of sleep. He had not been expecting this, and it was very flustering. Russia's breath against his neck, the feeling of Russia's hands on his sides. The best he could rationalize was that Russia was dreaming of doing this to someone he fancied. Someone more in his league than himself. He couldn't bring himself to let go of the hope that Russia wanted to do anything even remotely romantic with him. Moi, he heard Russia whisper, as though it was directed at him. He seemed quite content. Whoever he was dreaming of was one lucky person. He couldn't help but hope that it might be him, though he knew it was unlikely. He never heard Russia sleep talk after that, though he didn't mind, as Russia deserved that privacy. Though he couldn't really give Russia much, given how he was being held so close. But holding him like this seemed to help keep Russia calm and relaxed. He ended up laying there for a long while, checking the clock, finding it was now 8:06. He should really wake Russia up, so that Russia could get himself ready for breakfast, and so that he could get himself a meal and get to work. "Hey, Russ," he gently started, trying to wake him up. "You have to wake up." "Нет," Russia grumpily muttered. "Я стою с Zeptia." The Russian roughly translates to, "No, I stay with stars." "Russ, you gotta wake up," America said, gently trying to wake him. "It's 8. You gotta go to your room and get ready for the day." Russia made an even more grumpy noise as he opened his eyes. And that's the end of this chapter. I hope you enjoyed. Anyway, I'd like to invite you to join the Discord, which is linked down in the description below. That being said, I hope you have a nice rest of your day, night, or whatever it is for you. Just enjoy your time, and I will see you tomorrow.